It was my first real job, working the late shift at a McDonald's on the edge of town. The kind of place that's always strangely empty, even when the highway next to it is packed. My manager, Dave, was this grizzled older guy who'd seen it all. On my first night, he gave me the usual tour, then pointed to the drive-through headset. "Just one rule," he said, his voice low. "If an order comes through after we close, you don't answer it. Ever." I thought he was just messing with the new guy. I mean, who would order from a closed restaurant? The first few weeks were uneventful. Just the usual late-night rush of truckers and tired families. We'd lock the doors at midnight sharp, clean up, and head home. I almost forgot about Dave's weird rule. Then came that one Tuesday night. A storm was rolling in, the kind that makes the sky look bruised and angry. The rain was lashing against the windows, and the wind howled like something in pain. We closed up at midnight, and my coworker, Sarah, left in a hurry, leaving me to finish mopping. I was all alone. Suddenly, the drive-through headset crackled to life. A static-filled beep, then a voice. It was a child's voice, a little girl. "Can I get a Happy Meal, please?" she asked, her voice sounding thin and far away. My heart jumped into my throat. I looked at the clock. It was 12:15 a.m. We were definitely closed. The security monitors showed nothing but empty, rain-swept asphalt. My hand hovered over the button, but I didn't press it. "Hello." The little girl's voice came again, a little more insistent this time. "I'd like a Happy Meal with a cheeseburger." Every instinct told me to ignore it. It had to be a prank, maybe some kids with a walkie-talkie. I tried to focus on my mopping. The squeak of the mop on the tile a pathetic defense against the chilling silence between her words. "Please," she whimpered. "I'm very hungry." That's what got me. The whimper. It sounded so real, so sad. I thought, what if it's a real kid? What if her parents' car broke down just out of sight of the camera? I couldn't just leave a child out there in a storm. Against my better judgment, I pressed the button. "Hi there," I said, trying to sound friendly. "I'm sorry, but we're actually closed for the night." The static crackled. For a moment, there was only the sound of the rain. Then the voice came back, but it wasn't a little girl's voice anymore. It was deep, guttural, and it filled my ears with a sound like grinding rocks. "I know," it growled. "You shouldn't have answered." I ripped the headset off and threw it across the counter. My blood ran cold. I scrambled for the phone to call Dave, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. He answered on the second ring. I blurted out everything. The little girl, the voice, the empty drive-through. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Dave finally spoke, his voice was heavy with a kind of dread I'd never heard before. "Did you take the order?" he asked. "No. I told them we were closed." I yelled, panicked. "It doesn't matter," he said quietly. "You answered. They know you're there. Look, just get in the walk-in freezer. Now, don't come out until I get there. Don't make a sound." The line went dead. I didn't question it. I sprinted to the back, yanked open the heavy freezer door, and locked myself inside, plunging into the freezing, humming darkness. My breath plumed in front of me. Minutes felt like hours. All I could hear was the thumping of my own heart and the low hum of the freezer fans. Then I heard it. A soft tapping. Tap, 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 on the main kitchen door. It grew louder, more frantic. It turned into a loud, rhythmic banging that shook the whole building. And then I heard that voice again, right outside the freezer door. It wasn't shouting. It was whispering my name. I never went back to that McDonald's. Dave drove me home that night and told me I didn't have a job anymore, for my own safety. He told me the story of a family whose car had stalled in the drive-thru years ago during a flash flood. They never found the little girl. Some nights, he said, she still comes back, trying to place her last order. And she's not alone. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe for more strange stories. Stay safe out there. You know, I thought I'd seen it all working the late shift at McDonald's, but nothing could have prepared me for the night I met the man in the yellow raincoat. It was a Tuesday, around 2 a.m., and the rain was coming down in sheets. The kind of night where you only get the most dedicated or the most desperate customers. The drive-through bell dinged, and a staticky voice crackled through the speaker. "One McFlurry, please." "Oreo." Simple enough. I told him the total and to pull around. A few moments later, a battered old sedan, the kind that looks like it's seen better decades, sputtered to a stop at my window. The driver was a man, probably in his late 50s, wearing a bright yellow raincoat, the hood pulled low over his face, casting it in shadow. "Here's your McFlurry," I said, trying to sound cheerful. He didn't take it. He just stared at me. His hand, pale and thin, slowly reached out, not for the dessert, but for the edge of the windowsill. His fingers drummed a weird, uneven rhythm on the metal. "Something wrong, sir?" I asked, my smile feeling a little tight. He finally looked up, and I wish he hadn't. His eyes were wide, almost unnaturally so, and they had this intense, burning quality. He wasn't blinking. "You forgot the spoon," he whispered. His voice was raspy, like dry leaves scraping pavement. I immediately felt stupid. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," I said, turning to grab one. When I turned back, he was holding the McFlurry, but he hadn't moved from the window. He slowly, deliberately, dipped his index finger into the ice cream, pulled it out, and licked it clean. He did this again, and again, all while maintaining unbroken, terrifying eye contact with me. My blood ran cold. My manager, Dave, was in the back, restocking. I was completely alone at the front. "Sir," I managed to say, my voice trembling slightly. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" He just shook his head, a slow, deliberate motion. That's when he started talking. He told me about his day, in excruciating detail. He talked about the cracks in the sidewalk, the way the clouds looked in the afternoon, the specific shade of green on a leaf he saw. It was mundane, but his delivery was anything but. His voice never wavered from that low, intense whisper, and his eyes never left mine. It felt like he was trying to bore a hole into my soul. I'd glance at the clock, then back at him. 5 minutes turned into 10, then 15. A line of cars was starting to form behind him, horns beginning to beep impatiently. I tried to interrupt. "Sir, I have other customers." He didn't seem to hear me. He just continued his monologue, his finger occasionally dipping back into the melting McFlurry. The car behind him honked long and loud. The man in the raincoat finally stopped talking. He turned his head, a movement so slow it was creepy, and glared into his rearview mirror. Then he turned back to me. A slow, chilling smile spread across his face, a smile that didn't reach his wide, staring eyes. "They can wait," he hissed. At that point, I was panicking. I slammed the drive-through window shut and locked it. I backed away, my heart hammering against my ribs. He didn't move. He just sat there, in his car, smiling that awful smile, the half-eaten, finger-stirred McFlurry sitting on his dashboard. He stayed there for another 5 minutes, just staring at the closed window, before his car finally coughed back to life and slowly pulled away. Dave came up front, asking what the holdup was. I couldn't even explain it. To this day, I can't look at a yellow raincoat or an Oreo McFlurry the same way. Have you ever worked the late shift at a fast food joint? If you have, you know things can get a little weird after midnight. But what happened to me during my time at McDonald's wasn't just weird, it was downright terrifying. It all started on a foggy Tuesday night. I was a college student, just trying to make some extra cash. The restaurant was located just off a quiet, desolate highway, surrounded by thick woods. After we locked the doors at 11 p.m., it was just me and my manager, Sarah, left to clean up. The silence was usually comforting, but tonight, it felt heavy, oppressive. Around 1 a.m., as I was mopping the dining area, I heard a faint tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the drive-through window. I figured it was just a branch hitting the glass in the wind, so I ignored it and kept working. But the tapping got louder, more insistent. Tap, tap, tap. I walked over, expecting to see a late-night customer who hadn't seen the closed sign. I peered through the glass, but there was nothing there. Just the swirling fog and the empty, dark parking lot. A shiver ran down my spine. Probably just my imagination. I mumbled to myself, trying to brush it off. I went back to mopping, but a few minutes later, the headset for the drive-thru crackled to life in my ear. A distorted, raspy voice whispered, "Can I take your order?" My heart leaped into my throat. The drive-thru sensor wasn't supposed to activate unless a car was there. I looked at Sarah, who was in the back office counting the register. She hadn't heard a thing. I nervously pressed the button. "Sorry, we're closed," I said, my voice trembling. The line went silent for a moment. Then the same chilling voice replied, "I'm not hungry for food." That's when I lost it. I ripped the headset off and sprinted to the back office. "Sarah, you have to hear this." I stammered, trying to explain what had just happened. She looked at me like I was crazy, but she could see the genuine fear in my eyes. She agreed to listen in on the other headset. We stood there in the silent kitchen, waiting. The minutes stretched on, feeling like hours. Just as I was starting to think I'd imagined it all, the headset crackled again. This time, it wasn't a voice. It was the sound of a child's laughter, a high-pitched, gleeful giggle that echoed strangely through the speaker. It sounded like it was coming from right outside the window, but we both knew the parking lot was empty. Sarah and I stared at each other, our faces pale. The laughter continued, getting louder and more frantic, almost manic. Then, abruptly, it stopped. It was replaced by a low, guttural growl. We could hear a scratching sound now, not at the window, but at the back door of the kitchen, the heavy steel one that led to the dumpsters. Scratch, scratch, scrape. We were frozen in place, too terrified to move or even breathe. The scratching became more aggressive, like a large animal was trying to claw its way in. Sarah fumbled for her phone and shakily dialed 911. As she whispered our location to the operator, all the lights in the restaurant suddenly flickered and went out, plunging us into complete darkness. The only sound was the frantic scratching and our own ragged breaths. We huddled together in the corner of the office, waiting for what felt like an eternity. The scratching at the back door stopped. A new sound started, a soft, rhythmic thumping against the wall of the office itself. Thump, thump, thump. It was inside with us. Just then, we saw the flashing blue and red lights of the police car pulling into the parking lot. As soon as the light flooded the windows, the thumping stopped. Everything went silent. The police cleared the building, but they found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no one hiding in the shadows, no footprints in the fog outside. I quit the next day. I never went back to that McDonald's, not even during the daytime. Sometimes, when I drive past a fast food restaurant late at night, I still get a cold chill. And I can't for listening. And if you have your own creepy late shift story, share it in the comments below. Stay safe out there.